What we need to remember with this kind of SQL injection attack, a blind attack, is that we are just asking questions, and we're really just asking yes or no questions. Now earlier on, you saw me trying to discover how many records are in the sys.tables system table. And I started out by trying to guess explicitly, is it 10? And then I said, well look, what we can actually do is we can ask about a range. So we can say, is it less than 10? Is it greater than 5? And we can really slash the time that it takes in order to make the guess. Now we can do exactly the same thing with letters as well. We just have to convert the letter to a number. And the easiest way to do that is to take the ASCII value of the letter. So what you're looking at here is just a standard ASCII table for lowercase letters. Now of course, you could still have tables that have non-alpha characters in them. Could be numbers, could be a small subset of symbols. So we're simplifying here, and you may need to expand your scope beyond just these 26 ASCII values. But that's pretty straightforward to do, so long as you know the ASCII ranges that you're looking for. Now I want to show you how we're going to ask questions about this ASCII range. Main thing I want to point out now is that M is the 13th letter of the alphabet. It's dead center. And M is ASCII character 109. So let's have a look at how we're going to ask the questions of the database via a little decision tree. It becomes much easier to discover a letter in a position once you start asking the right question related to ASCII range. So for example, the first question I want to ask is the ASCII value of the first character less than or equal to an M? Now if it's no, then I'm going to go right, and I'm going to ask about S, because S is the next middle character between M and Z. Now if that's a no, we're going to fall down to, is it less than or equal to V? So now we're narrowing down this range. We're somewhere greater than S, but less than or equal to V. Now we might get a yes response this time. So now we split again. Is it less than or equal to T? And obviously greater than S. No, it's not. Therefore, it's got to either be a U or a V. That's all we're left with. So we can ask that question explicitly because it's the last possible option. And then we're either going to get a yes or a no. So even though we've got 26 letters in the alphabet, you can see that this was just 5 questions. So let's go and give this a go and see if we can discover the first letter of the first table in our sys.tables system table in only 5 questions. So let's go and build up this query. I'm going to jump back into Notepad. We are going to need a little bit more room for this one because we're going to have to run a couple of other functions here. So what we have already is we do have the substring, so we've got the first character of the name. What I want to do first is I want to lowercase that, because if we're comparing to the ASCII range, even though this collation on the database may not be case sensitive, we're still going to get a different ASCII value for lowercase versus uppercase characters that are otherwise the same. So I'm just going to wrap a lower around this, and we'll close that off at the end of the substring method. So that's the first thing. Now we're going lowercase. The next thing is to get the ASCII value. So I'll wrap another function around this, and it is just ASCII. And then we'll close that guy off as well. So that's all we need to get the ASCII value. Then of course what we're going to be doing is looking for ranges. And the first thing we're going to do is less than or equal to the letter M. And of course M was ASCII character 109. So I'm going to copy this line and I'm going to jump back over to the website. And let's now drop this into our query string. So that'll be everything from the starter case up until when that ascending parameter starts. And we'll paste it in. And of course, keep in mind the question we're asking here is whether or not the first character of the first table name in sys.tables is less than or equal to an M. Let's run that. And we get the Koenigsegg. So the answer is no. So we have to change our question. Now what I'm going to do is let me just reposition this window partially over our ASCII table from before, because I want to figure out what letter to do next. So if we want to go halfway between M and Z, we're going to want to take about an S, which is character 115. So let's now change this value, and we'll jump into the right spot here, 109 to 115. Run that. We've got Koenigsegg, so the answer is no. The first letter is not less than or equal to S. So we split again. Between S and Z, we'll go to about V, character 118. So let's see where we stand with 118. Still no. We've still got Koenigsegg. So it's greater than a V. We can figure the rest out just in our head because we're only down to a few letters now. So let's jump up a couple from V and we'll go X. So that'll be 2 more numbers, so 120. And now we've got Veyron. So now we know that it's not less than or equal to V, but it is less than or equal to X. So it must be either W or X. So now we can actually ask an explicit question and we can get an absolute answer. And the explicit question I want to ask is it equal to W, which is 119? Load the page, and there is the Bugatti. So the first letter of the first table in sys.tables is a W. And this is blind SQL injection now actually telling us something really specific. So something we can actually use. We know it's a W, we can keep enumerating through. So we can change it from substring 11 to substring 21. So start in position 2 and take 1 character. Is that equal to a W? Well, it's the Koenigsegg again, and we could repeat the whole thing, but clearly you now know what the process is. You can go through this process to discover all the tables and their names, all their object IDs in sys.tables, which you can then use to start enumerating through sys.columns and find all of those names. Now, what I will point out is that I did greatly simplify it here. I kept it to simply letters. Keep in mind that object names may have numbers and may have a limited set of symbols. So for example, an underscore. So make sure that as you're asking these yes and no questions, you're asking the right questions and you're not excluding characters which could actually exist in the underlying database names. Now, the last thing I'll say on this mechanism of SQL injection is that yes, it's laborious. In fact, it's very, very highly laborious. And it is the sort of thing that is a repeatable pattern. We could manually go and just keep moving one position at a time and asking those 5 questions about the character, or we could automate it. And inevitably, a blind SQL injection attack is going to be something that's very heavily automated. We will look at automation tools later on in this course, but it's really important that you understand the underlying mechanics, because without knowing how this actually works, your ability to exploit especially increasingly complex SQL injection risks will be rather limited. Now, with that said, that's Boolean-based injection wrapped up. Let's move on and start looking at time-based injection as well.